I stand here at historic Fort Charlotte, a place that for our country is not only a symbol of citizen protection, but also a symbol of citizen freedom. The motto here once was Expulsus Piratus, Restituta Commercia, which stood for Pirates Expelled, Trade Restored. And it is now, in our well-earned independence, forward, upward, onward, together. And in that right of our independence, it is incumbent upon us, as citizens of this country and citizens of the world, to ask the questions that need to be asked and to pursue the answers that carry forth truth and justice. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Citizens Review, the forum that will provide for us a place by which to pursue those answers and to do it with a sense of independence, a sense of accuracy, and a sense of boldness. I'm Aaron Ferguson, and this is Citizens Review. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Citizens Review. We played the intro again so that you could see and understand truly what this show is all about. Last week, after the show, I got a text from a good friend of mine, Mr. Cooper, that said, "Man, Aaron, that show felt like a call to action, a call to tell us that we have to step up and do what we got to do." Well, this show is a continuation of that call to action. We want to bring up the memories of the Burma Road riots where Bahamians didn't take anything. We stood for what we believed in. In 1967, we voted on paper for what we believed in. Back in the 30s, there was a riot of the taxicab union when we stood for what the Bahamas was all about. This is our country, you know, and we can't let nobody take it from us. We've compiled a whole bunch of clips. We have done a lot of research. We're bringing you a lot of information about what's going on here on the show. Before we go to the break and come back, I want to read to you some of the comments that we've been getting from our viewers. Glenn Riley says, "I must say, Citizens Review is a show to watch from now on." Christy says, "Another great show. It's always a pleasure to watch Citizens Review. It's informative, provocative, and filled with humor in some cases. Great choice on tonight's guest." I guess this was from last week. "Rodney Monka is always a show pleaser. Lastly, I can agree to some extent with the host, Mr. Ferguson, about the citizens' arrest for last night's show." And that would be the show where we talked about Bahamians needing to write. We got to write books. We got to get these governor generals and all of the like to write books. Looking forward to seeing next week's show. My good friend Rosemary Hanna always comments. She says, "Great show last week. Looking forward to seeing next week's show." Jackson Burnside says, "Thank you for the show on food sustainability with Godfrey Enyas and Tim Harbour from Lucayan Tropical. This shows that we can do with initiative and innovation anything that we want to do." Mr. Hunt commented on Mr. Jackson Burnside and said, "I hope that Bahamians will take heed. Now is that time to be innovative and take the lead, if not in the region, at least for ourselves." Ladies and gentlemen, we're trying to build a community of reviewers, citizens who take the Bahamas seriously and will dare to ask the questions that need to be asked and to get those answers from the politicians, from the priests, from anybody who we need answers from in order so that the review will be complete. I got some emails last week about gambling. Now, I'll say this, and Rodney Monka addressed it, and I'm going to address it. Until the Prime Minister and the government put something on the House of the Floor, they're only trying to waste our time. And we don't have time to waste. We have too many important issues to deal with. So, Prime Minister, Minister of National Security, or whomever is in charge, Gaming Board, Mr. Adderley, whomever, stop wasting people's time. Stop telling us things that you probably don't intend to do. We've been through marital rape with you already. You brought it up, you didn't finish it, and then we ended up in a situation where it's off the table, it's not being brought up again, and I don't see any hope for it. So, stop wasting our time with a bunch of diversions. We don't have the time. We need you all to get to work. Real work, not diversionary work. Anyway, our call to action show. We have things to do. Our governments are inefficient. Our systems aren't working. People are frustrated. People are losing jobs. People are losing businesses. Our utilities are becoming oppressive and putting people into difficult situations. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I have compiled the clip. My group here who works with me, I have students, by the way, so that you know how we get all this work done. I have students from the College of the Bahamas in the mass communications area. Although the teachers them striking and all that, I ain't that. But we have students that work hard here on this show doing the research, helping us with the writing, helping us with the producing, so that we make sure that we have a full initiative. That's how we get things done. Students want change. We want to see change. Bahamians like the show, so we make it happen. We put it together. We've compiled a clip that we need to watch this clip. Pay close attention to the figures in this clip so that you understand what our predicament is and what our call to action is. It features Dr. Martin Luther King, it features Marcus Garvey, and it features one of my favorite movie characters. All strong men who stood in the gap. Also, before we go to break, I want to make mention of Dr. Dorothy Height. She is the founder of the National Council of Negro Women and a civil rights giant. She passed, and we want to make mention of Dr. Dorothy Height. She represents, like Dr. Doris Johnson and Margaret MacDonald and all those strong women, what women have done to effect change in this country. Have a look at the clip. We'll be back right after the clip and then the messages.
Why Jesus called a man a fool. Most people would look up to him because he would have that something called money. And yet a Galilean peasant had the audacity to call that man a fool. The real reason that Jesus called this man a fool, number one, Jesus called this man a fool because he allowed the means by which he lived to outdistance the ends for which he lived. He failed to realize that wealth is always a result of the commonwealth. And so this man justly deserved his title. He was an eternal fool.
Ultimately, we're all dead men. Sadly, we cannot choose how, but we can decide how we meet that end in order that we are remembered as men.
We are men. We have hopes, we have passions, we have feelings, we have desires. We are men. We have hopes, we have passions, we have feelings, we have desires. So we are not going to abuse God's confidence in us as men.
Some of you are thinking you won't fight.
If we do not do that, we will be wiped out.
If you are not prepared to do it, then you will die.
You're up.
That was a serious clip. We have work to do, Bahamians. Real work to do. The question is, will we die as free men? And are you prepared to do it? We'll be right back. Before we begin the show, I have one correction to make. Last week, we made reference to Sir Arthur Folkes. We want to correct that reference. Sir Arthur Folkes' father, Dr. William Folkes, is actually a Jamaican. His mother is a Haitian, but his father is a Jamaican. Now, the name Folkes, we did some research on that further once we found that out. And the name Folkes still has its heritage from Haitian slaves, but it came to Arthur Folkes and to Dr. William Folkes through Jamaica. His mother was a Haitian. But still, the questions still remain. So, the first-generation Bahamian, and he represents a lot of first-generation Bahamians that we have amongst us who have still not received their papers. Now, another concern came to me, and it said that Sir Arthur Folkes was born pre-independence. And so anyone after independence who was born in the Bahamas was given citizenship. My question is not that technical. Here's what my question was in relation to Sir Arthur being the first Governor General of Haitian background. My question is, if Sir Arthur had been treated at those times the way we have Haitians and other foreign nationals treated today, what would have come of him? So, very simply, if Sir Arthur Folkes were born today of a Haitian and Jamaican parent in the Bahamas, what would come of him? And we have proof in the name of Louis Georges that he would not have been dealt with properly. He would have probably been a man without a country, like most of the persons in that same predicament today, and been limited in his ability to get an education, his ability to naturalize himself into society, to incorporate himself, to expose him or herself. It's important that we look at those issues. Anyway, I also wanted to make note of the fact that my grandmother is Marge Francis. She's the woman who Miss Burnside in church on Sunday told me had a dressmaker shop on Lewis Street and East Street right over the hill off the Fort Hill. And so Francis was one of the names we brought up. And luckily, Carlton Francis was related to my grandmother. So it spread all around. Everybody get a piece of it. I'm just saying. Next up, we're going to talk about global citizens taking a stand against corrupt governments. And we have 4 different citations. 2 of them are a little closer to home, but 2 of them are a little far off. But they all are relevant to the types of situation we're faced with today. The president of Kyrgyzstan, he has been faced with a situation where the citizens of Kyrgyzstan have decided that they are sick and tired of his corruption and his bad governance. So what have they done? He has exiled to a certain part of the country that is almost remote, and he has asked the people to please allow him to peacefully resign from the post of president. That is a serious situation. The people in Kyrgyzstan have taken control back of their country and have said, Mr. President, you serve at our behest. You serve the people of Kyrgyzstan, and if we are not pleased, we will take our country back. Now, I'm not saying that we have to get violent, but we at least have to begin to stand up and say something. That's my problem. We take in too much. We take in too much stuff. We have some clips about the Kyrgyzstan issue that I want to show you so that you could see the type of situation that they have in those countries that we don't have here in the Bahamas. But we have to be able to stand up as Bahamians and take this country back. This is our country. This is our land, our fruits, our labor. We built it. It's ours. And so, I say, if we're displeased with government, unseat them. That's what needs to happen. In Thailand, they have the red protesters that you'll see. And they have decided that government will not function as they were. Too corrupt, too problematic. They're not doing what they're supposed to do. They are not looking after the rights of people. And so they stand in the streets. They've made a whole festival of their protests. They say, we will not stand for this kind of treatment. People in Thailand will be treated like people. That is the point. We have the container port situation. That's a serious thing, you know. 3 people died. And we've not heard anything of a probe into that situation yet. We heard the Prime Minister come on TV and in my opinion, compromised the entire investigation by saying that Hutchison Whampoa is a good company. They've kept Alukaya open. That is compromising the investigation. The investigation has nothing to do with who Hutchison is and who the victims are. All it is that you get on the ground, you consider what has happened, and you tell us whether something is wrong. The court cases don't say Hubert Ingram versus the criminal, you know. It says the people v. whoever. The people versus whomever. The people of the Bahamas, the Commonwealth versus whomever. That's us. So if there needs to be a probe into what has happened, we need to see it. We need the comments from the prime ministers to be unadulterated. We need him not to comment and say that Hutchison is fine and we have nothing to worry about. That is inappropriate. The rights of people are paramount. And so we have to be protected. And if we are not, we have to demand our protection. Power concedes to nothing but a demand. We have to demand it. That's all I'm saying. If they treat us like nothing, we have to let them know. They work for us. We pay their salaries. We vote them in. And if they don't do what they're supposed to do, we will show you what we can tell you. Dean Barrow of Belize, who you will see, he has been shot at recently. The people of Belize are so displeased with Dean Barrow as their leader. He's been shot at. Now, I am not saying to shoot Mr. Ingram. I am not saying to shoot Mr. Simonet. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not calling for violence. I'm calling for action. Don't shoot Ingram. Don't shoot Simonet. But we have to deal with them. They need to know that you cannot come to a situation like that of Bahama and 7,000 workers come in and we suffer unemployment in Freeport of 20% and we will sit by the side. We will not. We won't take it. We don't have to because you work for us. You need to gather some consensus from us before you do your foolishness. In Trinidad, another situation. The Prime Minister of Trinidad has been forced almost to call another election, and the election is coming up. Trinidad has a chance of having a woman prime minister who is the leader of one of the parties. Why did that happen? Because people were displeased with the government. They brought pressure to bear on the government of Trinidad. And that's what happens when things aren't working the way people feel they should work. That's what should always happen. That's what government is about. That's what democracy is about. A continued conversation on the rights of people. And in the Bahamas, I am ashamed to say that our rights are not paramount. It does not seem. It seems like the investor have more rights than we have. It seems like the banks have more rights than we have. It seems like everybody but us, everybody except for us, have more rights. Why is that the case? That's something got to be wrong with that. In Trinidad, they could tell the prime minister, we need another election. We are tired. Now I'm not saying like I said, I'm not advocating violence. I'm advocating action. We have to act. We have to let them know we are not interested in governments that do not function at the will and in the best interest of the people, Prime Minister, you cannot, after 3 black Bahamians have died, have a press conference on behalf of the company where they died. That cannot work. This is not the Bahamas that happened in. Can't be. Cannot work. It has to be that you remain objective because your salary is paid, you were voted in and elected by the people of the Bahamas. A simple point, but a point nonetheless. Something going wrong in this place. We got to get to work. Citizens have to rise up and get to work. Because I scared for us, man. I don't know what coming next. If 3 of our boys could die and nothing happens, and the Prime Minister could have a conference and say, Hutchison is great, I don't know what's next. Every day in the courthouses, young black men being drove in over a spliff, going to jail, losing jobs. Now, I'm not saying they should be smoking drugs, but what I am saying is we're losing too many of them already. So there has to be some type of compromise. There has to be a way that this can work for us, with us in mind. On Citizens Review, all we're here to do is to provide an independent, accurate, and bold analysis. And that's what we're doing. We'll be right back after this break. Welcome back to the show. I want to read off some more comments. By the way, if you're trying to reach us, if you want to see some of the past episodes, go to citizensreviewtv.com. That's the website, citizensreviewtv.com. All of our past shows are on there. The shows that we've done with Fred Mitchell, Dr. Andre Rollins, Ryan Pinder, Dr. Dwayne Sands, all of our interesting shows where we called the Chief Justice a disgrace last week. All of those shows are on there. Go have a look at it. Get some material. Write some stuff. Give us some feedback. We're ready to bring what you have to the table. Last week, we got some more feedback. Mr. Cooper, Kyron Cooper says, this is the kind of show that encourages us as people of the Bahamas to be more than what we see, feel, or imagine. In that is the idea that we are heard and by all means understood. Thank you, Citizens Review. Boy, that's a nice comment, eh? Nino Newbold says, it was awesome tonight. Mr. Rodney Monka is simply the realest Bahamian you'll ever find. I agree with that. Natasha Ferguson says, I enjoyed. Questwell Ferguson says, campaign funding regulations. Identify if you can, and then compare and contrast the difference in the economic philosophy between the two parties, potential candidates to run for leadership of the two major parties, and how they can aid in the progress of the political arena and the nation at large. Those are some of the comments we got from the show. I have some more to read off when we come back into the next segment. Now, this week we saw some white-collar criminals get arrested. That was exciting for me. I mean, I sick and tired of seeing the young black men getting holed down in the prison system. So Ralph John Ward was arrested this week. He's an attorney, and I always think of this famous quote that I heard from one of my favorite preachers, Dr. Joseph Lowry. He's the guy, if you don't remember, at Obama's inauguration, he said, well, black will never have to get black, where yellow won't have to be mellow, where the red man can get a haired man. You remember that? Well, Dr. Joseph Lowry said that he is tired of people condemning looting in the streets and condoning looting in the office suites. Oh, Lord, them black Americans, they could put some words together, boy. So, This week, we saw some condemnation of looting in the office suites. Your lawyers need to get this thing together. And remember last week when I was talking about dreads versus wigs? These wigs, they just put on these lawyers to go to court. Well, I tell you, I'll tell my wife to marry a boy with dreads, because them wigs, there's a lot going on there. Now, I had a kid to write into the show, and he sent me this story about being a child and going to visit Government House. Now, you know I'm not into all the pomp and pageantry, but he said that when he went to visit Government House on a field trip, Saul Turnquest was governor back then, and he introduced them to Government House, and he showed them the chair and the throne and all of this stuff, right? And the kid ran up to the front of the stage and jumped and plopped down in Government House in the throne. And that kid got suspended, got banned from all field trips, and also was told that he couldn't go on the 6th grade senior trip. I said, well, that's a serious thing. These people really take this thing seriously. So, in the interest of freedom and democracy, last week we went, when they had the opening of the house, we took a picture of the throne, and we displayed that picture. And before I went up to Hewell and Hannah, and I said, now listen, if you could get locked up for sitting in this throne, you better call the police, because I going to sit in that throne. So you see the picture. For all those kids out there who want to sit in that throne, I sat in the gap for us. And so demystify all these royal relics and all this old stuff, these wigs and bunch of foolishness. Listen, I ain't no fan of that. To me, people got to eat. People need to be educated. We have people without a country, no passport, all kind of issues. I don't have time for no throne, and you can't sit here and suspending children for the throne. Man, come on, man. This got to be serious. Anyway, I digress. Let's move on to the next issue. Now, I have here an email I received from some people on Blue Hill Road that are really upset with Nico Grant. Man, my Grand Bahama colleague can't seem to get this thing together. Couldn't get it together in tourism, now you're in road works or whatever it is. It's certainly in Ministry of Works, because they keep saying that in Earl DeVoe is the Minister of Works. So, Mr. Ethric Bowe sent me this email, and he says that the government needs to begin to get afraid, because the people and the businessmen down on Blue Hill and Market Streets are about to get serious with the government. Now, I know you're thinking, okay, listen, we've been complaining about the roads. The roads need to get fixed. They fixing the road. Now, what you complaining about? I understand that, because that's the first thing I say. I say, Mr. Bowman, I mean, come on, man. They fixing the road. Why could you complain about fixing the road? Here's why they complain. He asked one very critical question, and this question ended all of my complaints. He said, did the government, in anticipating the changes that would happen, conduct an economic impact survey to determine what the economic impact would be of shutting down parts of the roads and changing the directions before they did it? Now, I have had a business in Fort Lauderdale, on Los Olas Boulevard, Coconuts Bahama Grill, and I know for a fact that before they made road changes to the water main pipes, they conducted an economic impact survey. They came and asked us what the challenges would be, and they made provisions for us to recover from the loss. So once they asked me that, well, Citizens Review got to take up the cause, because that's a serious problem. Let me read to you some of the things he said. He said it is unsafe to vehicles able to easily travel so fast in an urban environment. And the fact of the matter is, Market Street is an urban area. That is filled with houses on either side. So you can't, Blue Hill a little different. But Market Street is an urban area. More than 400 jobs are at risk. The loss of convenience, business businesses will lead to cutbacks and business closures, as if BEC ain't doing what they could to close the businesses already. Some businesses are, he didn't say that, I said that. Some businesses are experiencing sales fall-offs exceeding 40% since this road project started. Businesses in the town center mall, Hasty's gas station. Hasty's just do all that construction on the gas station. I know you got to pay for that. Super Value, The Meat Man, Domino's Pizza, Subway, Bamboo Shack, Stardust, and more will be adversely affected. I have a friend, Aaron's Barber Supplies, in the same area, getting affected. Several businesses have already taken the decision to close. These are all signs that the proper research was not done before the project was kicked off. Do I agree with the project? Yes, I do. Do I agree that they should have done their work beforehand? They absolutely should have. And now that the people complaining, you got to deal with the people. We arrested you for this before, Nico Grant. The minister's response, according to Mr. Bowe, his response is, too bad, too sad. It is not the role of government to disempower citizens, says Mr. Bowe. It is one thing to go out of business. It is another thing to be put out of business by the people who were elected to help you, by the people who you pay. We done talk about that. The cost of living in the Bahamas is going up. Elon Moxie got a nice one. Cost of living is going sky high. The chances of living are going down. Is this the legacy of Nico Grant? And finally, Mr. Bowe asks for us to pray for Nico Grant. And in the words of Dr. King's movement, Mr. Bowe says, we shall overcome. Boy, Nico, you got some pressure coming on you, my brother. I hope you get ready, because I supporting the citizens. Now, I don't understand how our politicians get on the opposite side of us. How does this work? We hire them, we vote for them, but advocates for citizens stand on the side of the citizens while the politicians over here. It's a different kind of country. 2 weeks ago, I think it was, we did Andre Monca. That was the young fellow who came on the show and did the spoken words piece about these Bahamian people, my Bahamian people. That was fun. We posted it on Facebook to see the kind of reaction we would get, and we got all kind of reaction. Divine Lady on Facebook said, goodness gracious, it was awesome. Joy Burrows said, profound. Sherry Sanders said, time to take charge and speak up. Good job. El Shabazz says, that's what's up, for real. Jackson Burnside, again, Mr. Burnside, you watching the show. Andre Monca was brilliant. Thank you. Reno Ferguson says, great job. Need more shows doing this for we the people. Veronica Stevens says, this encapsulates the new Bahamas. Dario and Bristol says, I've said it before, but this is the best show on Bahamian television. Allison Smith says, I must say I taught you well, Mr. Ferguson. That's my god sister, don't mind her. Both you and young Master Andre make me proud to be Bahamian. Allison Gibson, the senator, says, great video. Thanks for sharing. Keep up the great work. And Jennifer Johnson, who grew up with my father, says, great job, Aaron. We got some more issues to deal with. We'll deal with them right after this break. Welcome back to the show. This is Citizens Review. Now, you're probably asking yourself, what in God's name does Aaron Ferguson have on his head, and what kind of shirt this is he has on? Well, simple answer. This is a shirt that comes from African heritage, a day-by-day shirt, not necessarily a ceremonial shirt. And this hat is the kind of hat that men in Nigeria particularly would wear at weddings. Now, here's why I have this on. So that we could break up all of these challenges. We're so comfortable with going into courtrooms. If you think this look crazy, we're so comfortable with going into courtrooms and seeing lawyers in these little wigs, and seeing judges in these wigs, and seeing the president of the Senate and the Speaker of the House with these wigs on. Them things look strange, you know. And if you think that looks strange, and if you think this looks strange, well, these are the two sides of our cultural heritage. We have European background, enslaved masters, and we are black people, and therefore of African descent. Here's why this comes up. Jacinta Higgs, this last week, went to the opening of the House of Assembly, and everybody bust out laughing at Jacinta. Man, that's a good senator. She has this ceremonial headdress on, like these big ridiculous hats some of these Baptist people in English be wearing. And she wore it in the Senate, and they wrote stories about her. Godfrey Burns, Stan Burnside had a article about her in the paper on sideburns. I mean, all kind of laughs. Well, here it is. This me, wearing my African clothes to show you that this is part of who we are. And so we have a clip to encapsulate all of this. If you think our native clothing is crazy, then you got to think them wigs crazy. It's either one way or the other. Check out this clip. We're back on the show, and it is Earth Day. So I brought on the Nature Conservancy's very able coordinator, Mr. Anselino Davis, to talk with us about Earth Day. Mr. Davis, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Tell us about Earth Day. What is Earth Day all about? You know, Bahamians aren't the most environmentally friendly people. We don't quite get into all of that. Make that exciting for us.
Well, Earth Day started about 40 years ago.
Okay.
And now it's actually around the world. 192 countries have committed to having activities today.
Okay.
And it's all about respecting the environment, understanding what the Earth has to give us, understanding all these resources that we have, and how to take care of them properly. And when we talk about sustainability and the future, we're talking about not stopping people from being able to use the resources, but making it available so that we can use it today, get our use out of it, and it still be available for our children and our children's children.
Okay.
You could have some people who like, I don't want you to make a marine protected area because I want to go there and fish as much as I want. They want to bomb the fish, bomb the reef, whatever like that.
And run the nets and
Right.
carry the nets through.
But when we make a protected area, what we want to do is maybe slow down the amount of fishing. Make sure that you only catch the right size fish. Maybe encourage people to, instead of catching the animals from there, take a tourist to go and see the animal. Because you could take 500 pictures of a turtle instead of catching it and leaving it on its back on Montague, right?
Yeah, oh,
Right,
geez.
so-
I done see a couple of them.
So you could take like 100 pictures of the same turtle and charge people each time.
Yeah.
Instead of you catching something once and it being dead.
Yeah.
Now, the Nature Conservancy has opened its office in the Bahamas since 2003.
Okay.
So since we've been here, we've been cooperating with in-country partners, the Bahamas National Trust, Bahamas Reef Education and Environment Foundation, Bahamas Reef Environment Educational Foundation, and of course the government of the Bahamas.
Okay.
And this has led to lots of very healthy cooperative initiatives.
Okay.
There's the Caribbean Challenge, and the government of the Bahamas and Bonn, Germany, encouraged other Caribbean nations to join and protect 20% of our natural marine resources. So that's a huge initiative.
So what should kids in school be doing for Earth Day? How should we be appreciating Earth Day? I think my outfit today is more than relevant because Mother Earth is in Africa. We all believe that, I suppose. That's where all the research sources are. But what should kids be doing to celebrate it? What brings it to relevance?
There are a lot of things that we can do in the Bahamas.
Okay.
The first thing is to think. So think about what you're doing right now. Are all the lights necessary?
Yeah.
Is the water that you waste in necessary? Do you need to have, an acre of manicured lawn on your property? Can you reduce that so that some of it is fruit trees,
Yes.
some of it is maybe an area with gravel that you don't have to spend water and stuff on to keep it maintained, and find out more about your environment. Today, the Nature Conservancy is working with Disney Nature, and they're launching the Oceans movie in the U.S. and Canada.
That's exciting.
And actually, through that cooperation, a portion of the proceeds from the opening weeks will actually go back to the Adopt a Reef program for the Nature Conservancy.
Okay.
And you can visit it on nature.org. But that's going to help to protect 500,000 acres of marine habitat in the Bahamas.
That's exciting.
500,000.
Answer some questions for us because you work with conservation. What's the deal with Sanders Beach? People want to know. They tore down all the casuarinas, and we saw campaigns to say save the 40 and save the tree. But I've been hearing conflicting.
the 66.
The 66. Sorry, I've been hearing conflicting stories about what the deal is. Tell us.
Okay,
Should the trees have been cut down?
Okay, let me don't start from the beginning. Let me start from the first beginning.
Okay, make it quick now.
So
Give me the
1920s,
story.
casuarinas were brought from Australia to America and the Bahamas. 1920s, so that's less than 100 years.
Okay.
And they were only brought to be landscaping species. Somebody say,
They-
that's
they
pretty in
ain't-
Australia, let's bring them over here, put it as a hedge or whatever. But now it's escaped. It's in almost every island in the Bahamas.
Okay.
Every island, every key.
So it's spreading quick.
Right, it spreads. Each of those little pine cones, 30 to 50 seeds. Those seeds have wings. The wind could carry those seeds to other islands.
They like
Those,
that.
right. That,
Okay.
That's worse than rats.
Yeah.
And when they get there, they blanket everything below them with their needles.
Okay.
They're actually not even needles.
So that's why they call them invasive species.
Right. It's an invasive species. It gets into an area, it takes over, it kills other things. Now, people are looking at the beach and they're like, oh, it didn't do anything to Sanders Beach. Sanders Beach had a road on one side holding down the roots of those casuarinas. On the next side, it had a breakwater, that big cement wall.
Yes.
That's why that beach wasn't destroyed by those casuarina trees. But those casuarina trees, who was paying for people to rake up those needles and stuff that
We
fall
had to
out?
pay for that.
Okay, what about when the wind blow the sand
So
into
that's
the...
why Sanders Beaches be so dirty. That's the needles.
Okay.
Okay.
So all of this is going into negatively affecting our environment, and then anything that would have been held by the naturally occurring trees and stuff is now being washed into the sea.
Okay.
And this is not just a Sanders Beach problem.
It's all
This
over.
is everywhere throughout the Bahamas pretty much now.
So
on
they
all
should
of
have
our
cut
islands.
them down.
They should have cut them down
And
and
plant,
replaced them with the proper species.
Yeah, like the seagrass. Not the seagrass, sorry. It's the sea grape,
Yeah,
which has the good
we have
vines.
sea oats, sea grapes, sea purslane, buttonwood. You have various other native plants that should be on those beaches.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much for coming here for Earth Day, encouraging young people to participate and be excited about what Earth Day means. We appreciate the work that the Nature Conservancy does.
You're
Because
very welcome.
Bahamians need to get serious about it. You brought some stuff for
yes,
me.
Well, you touched on what can people do in the Bahamas.
Okay.
You know, you go to the food store and they double bagging everything. Everything
so
you buy.
could use
Get
the
a green bag. All those
okay.
plastic bags, they can end up somewhere inside the forest or inside the ocean,
Okay, I
killing
like this.
something that we need to respect in the Bahamas.
All right. Well, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Come
too.
back
It's
soon.
a pleasure.
Okay.
Definitely.
We'll be right back after these breaks.
Hello, Mama Africa, how are you? I'm feeling fine, and I hope you're fine too. Hello, Mama Africa, how are you? I'm feeling fine, and I hope you're fine too. Hello, Mama Africa.
That was just a little clip to give you a reminder of what we said about the chief of injustice last week. Now, I still got on my African stuff. I am proud. I will put this hat back on and walk around with this on for the rest of the day. But my head a little big, so I had to take that off for right now on the show. It don't look too savvy on camera. But we got to appreciate this. I know Mr. Burnside and my cousin Mark Evans will really appreciate this plug for our good African culture. Now, Mr. Davis just said that the casuarina them got to cut down. I wonder what the Jerome Fitzgerald and what's the other fella? I can't remember his name, from the lawyer, the PLP lawyer, who was talking about how we got to save the beach, and Ken Dorset. Yes. I wonder what they were talking about, because the environmentalists telling me, Lucayan Tropical, Tim Hauber told me the same thing. Mr. Davis telling me, you got to cut the trees down. But they running campaign talking about save the 66. Somebody got to give us the story straight. But I am going with the environmentalists. I'm just saying. Now, our citizens' arrest for the week. This week I saw in the paper that 3 F&M women decided that they had something to say about the way the government runs stuff. So they published their story. Freedom of the press, freedom of speech. They said what they have to say. And I with them. Their rights are their rights. But here's who we locking up this week. The F&M Women's Association and the PLP Women's Branch proceeded to release these statements talking about how, oh, no, the Prime Minister for the F&M's Women Association, the Prime Minister has done this and he has done this. Lies. There is one woman in cabinet. Teresa Moxie Ingram was clear about that. Johnny Ann Dorset and the first female speaker, Ms. Johnson, Natalia Johnson, was clear. One woman in cabinet. And they couldn't even give her a full ministry. She is a junior minister. And I know the woman is capable. And I mean, she's the only woman. And she's plenty woman. She's a butler. She's holding down the fort. But we need more. We need more woman representation. Loretta Butler, turn to hang in there, my girl. You can handle it for the rest of the women in the Bahamas. But Prime Minister, put some more women in the fold. The PLP, however, the women's branch of the PLP come with their bunch of talk about how the PLP did this and the PLP do that, and da. But all of their citations were about Mother Pratt, Glenys Hanna Martin, Alison Maynard, and the women in the last administration. And that's only 5 years. The PLP run the country for 25 years before 1992. So what could they have been talking about? We're not talking about 5 years of women being represented. Women been around from the beginning of time, when the ribs split. So what happened to them 25 years? PLP, you got to address that too. So this week, PLP women, F&M women, you lock up. Stop talking fool. Teresa Moxie Ingram, qualified educator. Italia Johnson, qualified woman. Johnny Ann Dorset, I with y'all. Women need more of a place. But note this one point, and y'all ain't getting off easy. If women are the majority of voters, women are partially responsible for why women aren't where they're supposed to be. So hold these fellas accountable. Same thing I was saying with Trinidad. I didn't say shoot Ingram. I didn't say shoot Simonet. But hold them accountable. PLP Women's Branch, F&M Women's Association, y'all lock up this week. Stop parading around with party dogma. We're tired of it. We want the truth. And those three women stood in the gap for the truth. And Ingram is a hard fella to start up against. But I admire y'all courage. Women with courage. Boy, that's something. We'll see y'all next week. That's our show for the week. I got these books from the Nature Conservancy I got to go read to get up on environmental issues. Have a nice week.
Gimme